Everything about our lives is recorded. You can watch anything in real time. Everybody I saw, they have bodies like we do. There are no economics like there are here. You have a job you do, but you do it for no other reason other than you love it. Now you came back home. This is the real world. As she was talking to him, he began to change. He changed from a man in his 80s or 90s to a man in his 30s. Meeting Jesus was like meeting your best friend. And he said, "You must tell them there is no death." I was riding a moped or a scooter. And I forget where I was going now, but I was riding, and I turned around this corner on the right, and right in front of me was a squirrel. So I tried to avoid it, and as I tried to avoid the squirrel, I went one way, the squirrel went the same way, so I turned and went the other way, and I slammed right into a tree. And I landed in such a way that I tore the tendons off my hand. So I had to go into surgery and have them reattached. Well, I had never been into surgery before. I was 21, never had surgery. So I went in, and when they went to give me the anesthesia, I had some kind of horrible allergic reaction, and it stopped my heart. And I actually died for what the surgeon said was 7 minutes until they could bring me back. Well, during that 7-minute period, I went to the other side, where we all go to when we cross. And I met my spirit guide, who took me on, all I can say is it was like some kind of a tour of a part of the other side where people go when they're interested in learning, developing, growing. It's kind of like a college campus where all this learning takes place. All the buildings are there, all the education is there, and that's where you would actually go to learn. So I think the place that I went to, as large as it was on the other side in a very specific place, because what I saw wasn't everything. It was just a small part of the other side. When I was on the other side, they have I guess you could describe them as temples. They're beautiful. They are they're made out of marble, and they look like Greek and Roman architecture. They've got the beautiful white columns. They're just absolutely gorgeous. And one of the buildings that I was in was this enormous library. And what my guide did is every time he took me to a new place, he showed me the outside of it. So we went to the outside of it first, so he could tell me what it looked like, and then we'd go inside. So this one building, I didn't know what it was, but it looked like it was just huge columns out front and all these stairs to walk up to. So we got inside, and it was a library. It was so large that I could not see the end of it. It was just enormous. There were all kinds of people there, and they were learning. They were reading, they were studying, they were talking with each other. There was just this atmosphere of, it's all about learning and growth, because here on the earth plane, in our lifetimes, we don't take anything with us except what we learned. So there's this huge emphasis on the other side about developing and learning and growing. And my guide was explaining this to me. Well, in this large library, there are rooms off on the left-hand side, kind of like a modern library has now, where they have study rooms off to the side. So he took me to this one room, and there was a woman in there, and I could see her just like I can see you, and I still remember every single detail. She was wearing a purple gown. She had her back to me, and she had jet long black hair down to her waist. Well, she was in this room, and what she was doing, she was watching a video screen. Now, back when this happened in 1987, we didn't have flat screen TVs. So what it looked like, to what I would describe it now, is it was a large, like a 50 or 60 inch flat screen TV on this wall, and she was watching it. Well, the crazy thing was that she was watching a battle that took place a couple of hundred years ago with the Native American Plains tribes and the U.S. cavalry. And it was an actual battle. And my guide said, I said something like, how is it possible that she's watching this? Because we didn't have video recorders, we didn't have cameras back then. And my guide said, everything is recorded. So everything about our lives is recorded. And what she was doing, she was interested in learning about this particular time in Earth's history. So she went to the room. I don't know how she got this particular history to play, but anything you want to learn, you can go to these rooms and you can watch it. So if you wanted to watch the invasion of Normandy in France in World War II, you could actually go in there and watch that as it really happened in real time. Anything you want to see in Earth's history, you just, I don't know if you talk to it or you put in a video or a file, but you can watch anything in real time. The other thing about the learning part was there's all kinds of things you can study. One of the places that I went to, or that my guide took me to, was a castle, and a castle like in medieval Europe. Well, it turns out on the other side, not only do you have the ability to learn by watching videos, you can actually go to these places and see what these buildings actually looked like. So for example, if you wanted to learn about medieval history in England, there's a place on the other side that we can go to. And not only do you learn by reading, but you can also learn by experiencing. So they had, and my guide told me that this is one of many, many castles on the other side. So I don't know why he took me to this particular one. We get to this castle. Again, he shows me the outside, and it was just a huge, huge castle. So he told me to walk in. So I walked in, and the whole floor was beautiful red carpeting and really high walls. On both sides of these walls, there were paintings, and they were paintings of kings and queens and princes and everyone who lived in this castle. So you could look up and you could see the actual full-length painting. You could see what they looked like, and you could also see what they were wearing. So if you wanted to spend some time on the other side learning about medieval history or medieval England, this is where you would go. Well, as I was looking at the paintings, in front of the paintings, there were podiums all the way down in front of each painting. And on this podium, there were books. Well, I found out that these books are references and writings about that person's life. So if you saw King Henry VIII, you could walk in, you could see his picture, you could see what he looked like, you could see what he wore, what the clothes were like, and then you could also read about his life. But every single thing that you do in a lifetime is recorded. So if you wanted to learn about him, King Henry VIII, you would look at this book and you could flip through and you could read about his life. The other thing that is so crazy is somehow God has the ability to record everything. Everything gets recorded. So you have not only his life, but you have conversations that he had. Did he care about the people he was serving? What kind of a king was he? What were the conversations like? Well, here's something that really blew my mind in terms of the emphasis on learning and where it comes from. I looked off to the right, and there was a girl coming down the spiral staircase. Again, I can still see her. She had strawberry blonde hair. She was wearing a red kind of gown with a golden sash and sandal. To this day, I still think about this. She walked up to me. She could see me. She walked up to me and she said, "Is there anything I can help you find?" I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know I had a death experience until a day later. So I had all these things I could think of to ask this girl. You know what I said? "I'm just looking, thank you." And I think to myself, I still kick myself. Why didn't I ask her, where was I? What's going on? What's happening here? Well, my guide told me that one of the things that she does on the other side is she is kind of like what we would call a scholar. She is someone who knows all about that particular time of Earth's history, the medieval period. That's what she loves to study. So for people on the other side who want to learn about that, they can come in, they can see the castle, they can see the paintings, they can read the books of those people, but they can also ask this girl anything that you want to know about. And that's one of her jobs. And jobs over there are not like they are here. Here you have a job because you gotta, pay your rent or your mortgage, you gotta buy groceries, pay utilities, you need to have money. On the other side, there are no economics like there are here. You have a job you do, like this girl in the castle, but you do it for no other reason other than you love it. That's your passion. And there are all kinds of things like this. Everything is about learning and developing and growing. When they gave me the anesthesia and I died, the next second I was standing up and I was looking at the most beautiful building I have ever seen. And my first thought was, I had no idea the hospital was this big. What I was in was what I found out later from my guide was called an orientation center. When I looked at it, I looked down, and as far as I could see, there was no end to this building. And off to the right were these tall, beautiful white marble columns that went all the way down. To the left, again in beautiful white pristine marble, there were these tunnels, these doorways that also went down as far as you could see. And right in front of those tunnels, there were marble tables, and there were 2 people sitting at every single table. I found out that these people are orientation counselors. Their whole job was to help people, and again, I don't know how this works. I just saw it. They come through these tunnels after they finish their lifetime here on Earth. They go through the tunnel, and you've heard probably a lot of times when people are in the tunnel, they see a white light at the end of the tunnel. Well, what that white light is it's the light that's coming from the other side that shines into these tunnels, which leads people to the other side. So the minute that they walk into that light, they're stepping into the orientation center. And so this woman, one of the counselors, she stood up, she walked over and she took this one of the guys who'd come through the tunnel. He was an elderly gentleman, probably in his 80s or 90s, and he had his right hand clutching his heart. And my guide said he died from a heart attack. So he came to the tunnel. This counselor stood up. She walked over and she took his hands in hers, and she led him back to the table, and they sat down. Well, the entire time she was talking to him, she was holding his hands. And my guide said, "Watch him carefully." So I was watching him, and as she was talking to him, he began to change. He changed from a man in his 80s or 90s to a man in his 30s. And I don't know why this is, but everybody on the other side is in their 30s. So what happened, the orientation counselor was telling him, you had just finished your lifetime. Now you came back home. This is the real world. The thing that I miss the most, even to this day, is the feeling of God. When you're there on the other side, you feel God and you feel his love for you. He absolutely cherishes us. We are so loved. It's hard to imagine what it's like. It's like having kids, how much you love your own kids. But for some reason on this side, on the earth plane, we don't feel that. And I think what people feel in their souls and what they miss is that feeling of love on the other side. I didn't want to come back because of that love you feel. Feel so loved, so safe, so not judged. There isn't a central place that I felt where God was. It was more like he was everywhere. It was like a tangible feeling, and it just felt incredible. When I came back into the hospital room, and a couple days after that, when I realized what had happened, I went through a horrible depression because I didn't want to be here. I wanted to be back where I was, because it just feels, it's like trying to tell someone what paradise is like. It's like, and I've never been able to find the words to adequately describe what it's really like. It's just fantastic. Meeting Jesus was like meeting your best friend. He was, again, absolutely full of love. You got from him that there was no judgment in your life, that he didn't have the capability of judging you. He understood us. He went through and understood what it was like to be human. And at the time, I didn't think to ask any questions. I didn't really have I just didn't have time to think. But he spoke to me and he said, "You must tell them there is no death." So what they showed me, everything that they took me to see, wasn't just for me. It was to share this information with whomever would listen to me. And so all of these years now, I've been just trying to share what I saw. There's something about him that's different. Everybody I saw, they have bodies like we do, but they're different. But they have bodies. I could see them just like I can see you. But when he came to me in that field, the only thing I could see on him, I could see his hands, his feet. He was wearing a beautiful white robe with a golden sash, and he had kind of the color of gold sandals that laced up his calves, up to the knee. When I looked at his face, he was so bright and had so much energy that I couldn't see his face. It was just like lightning coming out of him. Just absolutely a powerful, beautiful soul. But he was different than everybody else was. And I don't know why. It could be that he was just so much more evolved, or had so much more knowledge, but he was just uncontained energy. But it was beautiful. He knows everything about you, and everything that you think you did that was embarrassing isn't embarrassing to him, because he knows exactly what it's like. He doesn't judge you. It's like he's congratulating you for coming to life, where this place is hard. Life on earth is hard. People go through so many rough periods in life, and he understands all that. And it was just a fantastic, I wish I would have had more time with him. He just spoke to me that one sentence, and then I was sent back. It was like I only had a certain amount of time there, and he was the last person that I saw. People have asked me, did you have any gifts? Were you given anything when you came back? I really wasn't. I didn't have any extra abilities. I wasn't more psychic. I didn't have anything. But what I did come back with was absolute 100% memory of every place he took me to. And one of the places that I think was probably my most favorite was when he took me to a planetarium. He took me to the outside, and it looked like a huge, enormous stadium. So he showed me the outside, then he took me in the inside, and it was a huge round, kind of oval-like building with chairs, thousands and thousands of chairs. And I was there with myself. It was just me and my guide. Well, there was somebody behind me that said to me, "Go ahead and sit down and we'll start." The lights went off, and as I looked up, the guy behind me said, "When you look at the stars, this is what you see," meaning everybody who's on Earth. This is what you see. And all of a sudden, it started showing pictures of our planets: Uranus, Jupiter, Saturn, Mars. All of our solar system planets showed up. And then it disappeared. And the man behind me said, "When we look at the stars," meaning everybody on the other side, from their perspective, when they look at the stars, this is what they see. And all of a sudden, planet after planet after planet started showing up. Hundreds, thousands, then millions of planets. And he said to me, there's more life in the universe than you can possibly know. And astronomy has always been something I enjoyed learning about. I could never do the math. I loved learning about planets and stars, and I could have stayed there. And it's just a great place of learning that you can go to. Another example of how you can learn about things and grow was in this planetarium. I wish I could explain to you what it felt like. It's something I think about every single day. And Earth is like being in a war and you're in a foxhole without a radio. We don't have that same connection to God that you feel when you're on the other side. And I don't know why that is. I don't know why that's different. We don't feel that. And I think that's one of the things that people feel in their heart, that they're missing something. And what it is that love of God. And it's just hard. It's hard to be here. This is a hard planet.